Hey everybody, welcome back. We are in, I forgot to say this in our last video, this is week 19. We are in lesson 5, still talking about extraordinary, and so I'm back again with my lovely sister Lainey.
Hello.
And we had so much fun last time, and so we're excited to have a few more with each other, and she just makes life so much fun. So today we're going to be talking about obedience. Now, growing up, me and Taylor, my brother, who's the older brother, he was in trouble all the time. I was right behind him. This one probably got 5 spankings, maybe her entire life. She was. And Lainey was that. So just tell them some of the stories about us growing up as kids.
Well, Taylor was always in trouble. Poor thing. Lindsay, though, as she said, she was right behind him, and I was the sibling. I'm sure many of you are out there like this. I know my husband was. When they got in trouble, I would cry and be like, Mom, no, she didn't mean it. She didn't mean it. And I just tried to get them out from spankings. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, she needed one bad. I should have just sat over here. But so Mom would be dealing with me as I'm crying and like, why are you spanking her? She didn't do anything, and she did. And Dad's dealing with them, and so that was our life
you would, like,
growing
sit
up.
Out the door, like, and Dad's. I say he beat us. He said he just spanked us, but it was
normal
hard.
Spanking, no child abuse around here.
But Lainey would literally sit there just cry. But Taylor and I, even though it was different, we just did not know how to obey. Especially, I know Dad disciplined us differently, but I was the sass one. I was the one that slammed the doors. Taylor slammed doors too, but I don't know. It was pretty close. I mean, Taylor, I don't know. Lainey was just the good one. Lainey didn't have a problem with obeying Mom and Dad, probably because she saw how me and my brother acted.
They were too busy taking care of them that I was just kind of forgotten, so I just chilled. So
she calls no problems. But talking about obedience, I think sometimes being an extraordinary woman, especially in the godly sense, it is obeying God. And I'm still learning balance. I don't have children, but I have a husband and a cat, Rhodey. And so learning balance, I mean, as a single person, it's different than when you're married. And I know when I got married, I'd still try to live like I was single, going out all the time with my girlfriends. My husband's like, hello. And it wasn't that I didn't want to spend time with him. It was, I was so used to doing my own thing. And so I think part of being a godly woman and being extraordinary is, just being obedient to what God's asked you to do. And that's hard. And I remember asking the Lord just a few months ago, Lord, I want to do everything you've called me to do. I want to be successful in my life, whatever that looks like. God, I just want to do what you've asked me to do. And then I'm thinking some spiritual answer is going to come back. He said, just do what I've asked you to do. I'm like, is that it? Like, that's all you want me to do? Because people will want to do all kind of stuff. And even people that mean well, but sometimes you just have to learn to say no. She's great at saying no. I'm not great at saying no. No, but like when things that matter, like she's great at setting boundaries. I've had to learn to say no and set boundaries. And so if you're watching, some of the things about being obedient is that God's not going to advance you past your last act of obedience. And sometimes we're asking God and believing God, I want this. And he's like, well, you haven't been obedient to what I asked you to do with this. And for me personally, one of those things was letting go of the wrong relationships you have no business being involved with. Especially when I was younger. We won't get into that. But Lainey was there. I mean, she saw a lot of those stupid choices I made, and she knew it was going to come out at some point, and that was really hard for me. So I think part of the obedience is when God says, I need you to let go of this, or I need you to walk away from this relationship, or let go of this attitude. Or sometimes it's not just a physical thing, it can be something internal. So Lainey, what do you think about just being obedient with God?
I think it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to put your flesh away completely, and every situation's different, but it's definitely something that, it's just like, working with children. It's so hard to get them to obey sometimes, but that's how adults are. And that's how I think sometimes God's looking at me like I'm looking at some of my 4 and 5-year-olds as they're throwing a tantrum about not getting a snack or something. That's how I feel like he views us with the simplest things.
Yeah.
But it's hard to be obedient, but with obedience comes growth and all the good things that are promised to you in the Bible.
Amen. Amen, girl. 1 Samuel 15:22, it talks about that the Lord, I just lost my place. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And I think sometimes, I can sacrifice in some things super easily, and then in certain things I can obey
Not
really
food.
easily. No, food, no. Let's talk about this. So I can set aside time to pray. I can fast social media, but that's not really a challenge for me. Food is. So we did a fast, and I've never done the Daniel fast. Of course, I was rebuked in a funny way by one of our young adult guys who said, well, technically Daniel fast is 21 days. I was like, well, I told the Lord I was going to do 7. That was the hardest 7 days of my life. I was so grumpy. I was so hungry. I just wanted meat. I wanted a Coke. I just wanted Sour Patch Kids. And so that whole week, and Lainey's fasted before, so she's like, but one of the cool things was she's like, you can do it, Lindsey, you can do it. It's only a few more days. It's only a few more days. I was like, oh my gosh. And some of you are sitting there shaking your head going, you are so ridiculous. But when you've got something that you're giving up and it's costing you something I love food. Even though it was only for a week, in my prayer time, I got more answers in that week by denying my flesh more than I did when I fasted in times past, just setting aside time or social media. That's easy for me to do, social media things, but to sacrifice something that I love doing. And even though that was a sacrifice, there's nothing wrong with sacrificing, but I believe with the Lord, He says, yes, I love sacrifices, but I want you to obey me more than anything. And one thing I learned too early on as a teenager, and I still learn this as I get older, is delayed obedience is still disobedience. And sometimes we talked about this being in the presence of God last time. Sometimes we get into the presence of God and God starts dealing with us and it makes us really uncomfortable. So we're like, okay, well, I won't really press in this time because I know what He's going to tell me. So I'll just worship, on the outer court. Like, I don't want to go into the inner court because Jesus is going to deal with me and I'm not ready for that yet. But I really believe that us being obedient, one of my favorite Bible characters is Esther. And it was because of her obedience, her obedience to do what she needed to do literally saved a nation. And you just don't know who's on the other side of your obedience, to not quit, to be faithful to the call of God, being faithful to your job. You don't know what God's got, in front of you. And as much as that fast was hard for me, I had my sister, my husband, he was struggling too. But just being there to encourage you. So, Lainey, do you have anything else? I know obviously there's rewards in obedience, but just to encourage those that are watching with anything else?
In obedience?
Yeah, in obedience.
Well, I know with obedience, the simplest thing is, like you said, is most of the time what to do. It's hard. I'll just say the only time I could be like, I know you've had relationships you knew that weren't right. I didn't really have that. I was not the normal teenager.
The first guy she dated.
So I wasn't like, I didn't have to sacrifice that. But I know when I graduated high school, I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do. I had a few careers that I was like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And I'm just like, I didn't know. When right when you graduate college, right when you graduate high school, you're just kind of, what kind of person do I want to be? What do I want to grow up into be? Do I need to go to college? Do I need to go away, stay? The million questions you have when you graduate high school, because now you have your own choices. Everything up until high school, you pretty much are told what to do. So now this is the only time in your start that you decide where you want to go as a person. And so after that, after high school, I was just kind of, I'm not sure. I was going to go, somewhere and stay for a few months. And then I was just like, no, I don't feel like that's right for me. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to take a year off and I'll just I worked up here, started started in media for 6 weeks. Not for me.
That's so funny that you did media.
And,
you did.
Yeah, I did. That was before we had a lot to do. I cleaned the wire room, did VHS tapes, oh my gosh, randomness.
VHS,
and
that's old school.
Our media director, I don't think, knew what to do with me. I was just kind of chilling. It's like, here, I'm cleaning the room, and now I'm sure there's plenty of things to do, but I'm overrunning the kids. We're good. But so I did that for 6 weeks, and then I was the kids assistant, and in our old nursery in 2s and 3s, I painted. I was the resident painter. I was painting like the nursery. I painted all the walls. I'd pull the cabinets off the changing table and had the 3-layer molding on the cabinets. I'd do 3 different colors on it. Man, it looked perfect. But I was doing what I knew to do. I didn't have school. I didn't have anything else, but I put my heart into it. And I did it, but I was kind of at the 6 months, was like, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm almost at my year point. I got to do it. So I decided to fast, and I fasted. I did a 21-day fast. It was one of my first ones. And, it wasn't that hard. It was just kind of the hardest part was learning what you can and can't have. But the first day I've prayed, and I was like, I don't know what to do. Do I need to go to Bible school? Do I just go to nursing school? Do I want to be a teacher? Do I want to move away and go to school? Because I could do so many things. I had endless possibilities. My dad and mom were just like, you figure it out. We're not going to tell you what to do. And so the first day, it's like the whole time I committed to 21 days, but the first day I got the answer. And I knew, and I was resistant to it, but because it was kind of, I don't know, I just didn't want it. But I knew I needed to go to Bible school. And I was just like, God, I don't want to do it. And so I knew the first day, I was like, I knew it. And for probably 21 days, I was just like, God, I'm just waiting to hear from you. I'm just waiting to hear from you. I'm like, this is day 18, day 20. I heard nothing from you. And, I'm just lying to myself. And the 21-day fast at the end, I was like, I've got to move my flesh aside and my pride of being a pastor's kid. I didn't want to go down the route of, Bible school, being in the ministry. I just didn't know if that was for me, man. And so I did it. In the first trimester, I was still resistant to it. And it was the only time I made a C, my only C in my class. I was so hurt by it. I think it just turned my heart around. After that, I made all A's. But it was, I had to deal with my flesh with going to that, and it was the best decision I could have made for that. Mm-hmm. And a few of the classes, I was like, what is this going to do for me? And then a few years later, it's like, oh my gosh, this is what this is about. I understand it now. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I think it was a delay. I don't think it was delayed obedience. I think it was a delayed realization of what I needed to do. Mm-hmm. And when I did it,
more of a fighting.
It was. I was fighting my flesh and God with moment like that's not what I want to do, but in my heart, it was what I wanted to do. 9 years later, I'm over all our children's ministry and encourage Bible school to everyone. If you want to check it out, it's very, very helpful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I just laughed when I found out she was going to Bible school because she was so adamant. Lainey, growing up, because we have an older brother, the 3 car kids, we were always at church. And the only reason we were not at church is if we were with the fever. I mean,
I was in my dad's green room with the fever.
Yeah.
Mom checked on me after she's done praise and worship. You okay? You good? Then go to church, or she'd sit with me.
Yeah, it was never that. But I remember Lainey, I don't know if you remember saying this, but she was a teenager, and to just talk about being a pastor's daughter and stuff. And Lainey was like, if it's expected of me, I will not do it. Yeah. And so she was the type, if our dad would say, come on, just lift up your hands, Lainey.
So,
she just would not. I was the one, camp meeting, woohoo, prayer, 2-hour prayer service, I'm there. Like, he's like, seriously? But I think what's been neat is, obviously, as you can tell, we are total opposites in our things, but I learned so much from her, and I would like to think she learns at least a couple of things from me.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Lainey. I'm sure she does. But it's just really neat to see how just following God and being obedient to what God's asked you to do, and even with your husband, I mean, that was somebody she would have never picked and fought that, and growing up together, and and I'm I see him, I'm so thankful, because Lainey actually got married. She was the first one, and then Taylor, and then me. But we all married people in the church that my husband Paul and Lainey's husband. Well, was Amadeus in kids church here, or just youth? Was he in kids' church?
Okay, it was, yeah.
Okay. It's crazy. I mean, we marry people that we grew up with in a sense, and so God just has a sense of humor with things. But we just want to encourage you, when it comes to pursuing God's will for your life, He's not going to put anything in your path to confuse you. And I think sometimes we think, oh, this is of God. God doesn't cause confusion. And just know that if you're in something or there's something within yourself that's robbing you of what God has for you, it's so important that you understand that getting rid of that thing and being obedient to say, okay, Lord, I'm gonna lay this aside. I'm gonna lay this attitude aside, my pride aside, because I don't want to miss what you have for me. And for me, when I homeschooled in middle school, my decision was high school, and my parents told me, well, you can go to Bird, which even though I didn't go to Bird, I'm an honorary Bird person. You could go to Bird or you could homeschool, but you've got to seek God. And I was mad too, because I'm thinking if this fails, I can blame my parents, but it was either go to high school or homeschool. And they told me, I didn't fast, I just prayed, but the Lord just really spoke to me and being obedient to that. So thankful we had parents that could have easily told us what to do, but they're like, you've got to learn to hear God for yourself. So just know that whatever God has for you, it's worth fighting for. Sometimes you're fighting either for God's will or you're fighting against God's will. So you've got to get in the Word and know, what you're fighting for. And I've seen this in my own life and in other people's. God will never ask you to give up something that He doesn't have something, better to give you in return. So just be encouraged with that, and just know that, being obedient is what God has. And thankful Mary was obedient to what God had for her. And just as she birthed Jesus, I believe, part of us is we are also birthing Jesus spiritually into people's lives, so people can benefit from what, God birthed in us, to bring life to other people. So anyways, we're excited, and we're going to be back next week and talk about servanthood. Lainey is really excited about this one. And so we'll see y'all next week.